week in racing. It's time to recap it. And who better to do it than Michael and Magic? Two bros/pros who cover the highs and lows of racing around the globe on every one of their shows. Real fans look forward to these guys and their last thoughts, cause they know they're not talking out of their royal ascot. What they say makes sense. So ladies and gents, sit back and relax as Blinkers Off presents The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is The Magic Mike Show, episode 309. Mr. Samich.
Huzzah!
What a great weekend of football, NFL, college football. Kentucky Downs is over. I think a lot of people are happy about that in more ways than one. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, it's funny. Love me some Kentucky Downs, but never upset when the 6 days are over. I mean, it's one of those things. I love the big fields. I love the low takeout pick five. It's great, but man, it can be wildly frustrating. The camera angles start to wear on you just when you think you got it down. It kind of flips the script on you, and you gotta try and get with it again. And there's just some horses that aren't gettable there, and that's what can be frustrating. But I was happy that we had Kentucky Downs in our life. I'm happy that Kentucky Downs is moving on now. Looking forward to headed back to Belmont or checking out some Churchill action, go down to Gulfstream. We've got a lot of good tracks running right now.
So Kentucky Downs, they're known for those huge purses, right? Like the ridiculous amounts of money that you can make for winning, even a maiden special, even a claiming race, you can make a lot of money for a horse winning. They announced that next year's meet at Kentucky Downs, they're going to have a pair of allowance races with $250,000 purses that are restricted to Keeneland yearling purchases, or you have to be bought at a Keeneland sale. So Keeneland Auction is helping fund that. So you can literally win a $250,000 allowance race at Kentucky Downs next year. Mike, I think we need to find one of these bargain horses and send it to Maker and just go, get it. This is a Keeneland horse. Get us into that race right there.
Get her done, right? Yeah, it's amazing, man. I think this is why, obviously the fields are huge because the purses are huge, and you've got horses coming in from Ellis and Saratoga and Gulfstream and Churchill and Arlington, all these different places kind of taking a shot at these massive purses that you're not going to get anywhere else. And obviously a boutique meet as well. I will be interested to see, I think this is one of the big things I'm looking for next year, how many Europeans we have come over next year. As these purses grow, we're starting to see more and more European horses ship in. We're going to talk a little about the late pick four on Saturday, specifically the Learjet, who ends up getting the job done coming over from Europe. I think it's really interesting that we had a couple Europeans come over and they all ran well, right? I mean, everyone who had that European bloodline seemed to really enjoy the turf course, and it's probably a pretty big advantage. Because when you think about the Kentucky Downs turf course compared to anywhere else in the U.S., it's very different. It's not undulating at Del Mar or Saratoga or Ellis. And it's interesting that you have, in Europe, you have these more unique shaped turf courses, hills going up and down. That's what you face at Kentucky Downs. So I'm interested to see how many more ship in. I was amazed. I'll save the next one. I'm a little teaser. I'm going to save the next tidbit for later in the show when we talk about the wrap-up from Kentucky Downs.
Well, before we get there, Mike, lots of things to choose from, lots of fun from this past weekend on any kind of grass surface, any kind of sport being played on it. What was the best thing you saw?
This is easy, man. I was so excited for the Red Zone countdown clock.
Yeah, you were.
I love the Red Zone channel. It's literally one of my favorite 2 or 3 channels in the world. That is probably the best invention in the world in the last 25 years is the Red Zone channel. So I was so excited just to see that clock starting to count down. And my daughter's watching football with me, watching this clock countdown. She's like, "Daddy, why are we watching a clock?" I'm like, "Don't worry. What happens when it gets to 0 is so epic. It's amazing." So it was nice to have that clock back in my life and the countdown and then the music. And then we kick right into it. And almost the first kickoff returned back for a touchdown by Buffalo, and then it slowly went downhill from there for him.
I got to figure out if I have access to NFL Red Zone again. I clearly, we've talked about this before, but when you become a new dad, that first year sports just get after you. have no idea what's happening. So I don't know what everything that's been going on, but I like staying up to date with at least what's happening in the background. The problem is Mrs. Magic recently read a study that the amount of screen time that a child gets in the first 18 months is extremely paramount to their brain development and their speech development in terms of you should never do it. And I'm like, oh, crap. We had just gotten it. We watched 4 months worth of Gilmore Girls because it was just that was the one thing that saved us. Is just if he's throwing a tantrum, put Gilmore Girls on and put him in front of it, and he shuts right up and watches it. So we can't really do that anymore. So I don't know how much I'll be able to get away with Red Zone watching this season. I might have to wait till next year.
Yeah, I mean, you're so far behind sports. You're wearing a Jared Goff Rams jersey. You know he was traded, right? He's now on the Lions. He's no longer a Rams player.
So wait a minute. He goes to the Lions, and the Lions still almost beat the 49ers.
Yeah.
Like, was Matt Stafford the problem, or what's it? No, I'm just kidding. I did know that. No, the reason I wore this, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but Mike Samich had a bunch of bets up on the Racing Dudes sports section, the first Samo 6-pack, and you went 3-3. You had one parlay that worked out really well. The other one, you had the Rams beating the Bears, covering against the Bears. You had the 49ers cover against the Lions, and the Lions put up 16 points in the fourth quarter, kind of dashed that hope. So I was going to put on a Lions jersey, but I thought, let me be a little more subtle with Mike. I'll put on a Rams jersey because that was one half of the parlay, but then it's Jared Goff who ruined the other part of it.
As someone who edits those, you'd think you'd be able to read better. I ended up going 4-2 because that was a teaser.
Oh, did you tease it? Oh, I didn't.
They covered the tease leg. That's why you play teasers with those big favorites. So those said that backdoor cover wasn't quite backdoor enough to get me beat. So we were able to go 4-2. But hey, thanks for reading the article when you edited it.
I didn't. Wait, did I edit it? Yeah, I guess I did briefly, didn't I? Yeah, that was. Well, listen. I'll read it more next time if you give me more than 5 minutes heads up to read it. How about that?
It took you the whole day. It was more than 5 minutes.
I was on dad duty. No, well, congratulations then. Anyways, we'll get back into that a little bit later here. The best thing that I saw, and I'm sorry this is not going to make for great content for the audio listeners, but right here, September 10th, 2021, the New York Racing Association published for everybody to read the official notice of hearing to Robert A. Baffert is going to be they're holding a hearing at the end of September on the 27th here. Mike, I don't know if you read through this 12-page document. I did a couple of times, once with a nice red glass of wine, a candle lit, very nice mood-setting music going on. This was fantastic. Reading through this, 37 factual statements, 3 actual conduct detrimental charges, everything listed out. But it also reminded me a long time ago, I shouldn't say a long time, I guess it was almost a year ago to the day when the issue with Gamine and all of her positives came up. Remember last September? We as a Racing Dudes team were sent an audio file from someone who had interviewed Bob Baffert in the middle of all the Gamine stuff going on. And we chose not to publish the audio, but let's just say that it wouldn't have taken a very strong wind gust to knock down that house of cards. And so reading through all of his press tour notes after Medina Spirit's positive from the Derby, it was a lot of fun, reminded me a lot of that he's just like that close to being pushed into completely losing it. So, it'd be nice to see that house fall down. Might have to save for a different day, but at least this document, loved it. Thank you, New York Racing Association.
I mean, just to piggyback on that, I loved the Churchill Downs one where they're like, how do you essentially ban Bob Baffert from the Kentucky Derby without saying you're banning Bob Baffert from the Kentucky Derby? And that's just any trainer suspended cannot earn points for the Kentucky Derby. And so that's one way to go, Churchill. We'll take it.
Yeah, tell me you're suspending Bob Baffert without telling me you're suspending specifically Bob Baffert.
Oh, I love it. Because I'm glad that we're actually seeing jurisdictions take action this time. Like, it's been long enough that you've not seen people actually take action. It's nice to see people take action and follow through.
Well, we're going to follow through on looking back at Kentucky Downs from this past weekend, talk about some of our biggest takeaways, and then we'll get into some football talk, some betting talk, because it was a big weekend, especially for the Racing Dudes sports side of the website, so we want to talk about that a little bit. But, Mike, it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get into it. Riders up! All right, Mike, there's not a whole lot to take away from Kentucky Downs because it's such a very quirky course and conditions, and a lot of quirky results end up happening. So we're not going to go too deep into the woods on these like we do sometimes, but we want to look back at Kentucky Downs, talk about our pick 4 that we put together for Saturday's card, starting with the Grade $3 million Turf Sprint Stakes. This is a British Cup winner for the Turf Sprint, which is going to be interesting because this is a 6-furlong race in distance, closer to 6.5, 7. Del Mar is a 5-furlong dash. I don't really know how much you want to read into the results of this race. A horse that I liked, my second choice in the race, Gear Jockey, gets the job done. The horse that you said you would take literally anyone else out of his last race, the Troy Stakes, because you didn't like how he ran in that spot. Didn't work out for you here to fade him, but listen, we both blanked on a couple of other races, so I'm not going to harp on it. Do you have any takeaways at all from the Turf Sprint Stakes?
I mean, there's two main takeaways. First off, Gear Jockey's now in like my top 5 most hated horse list. Pretty much can't stand this horse. Although Gear Jockey has improved a ton those last 3 races, and this is a 4-year-old later in the season, so I mean, you got to give him credit jumping up from a career best 96 buyer to start out this sequence, then goes to a 99, runs a 105, which is an absolutely massive number, significantly higher than anything he's ever run before. So huge effort from Gear Jockey. Got to give him credit. And this is a son of Twirling Candy, loves turf sprinting. So I don't really think he is a threat in the Breeders' Cup. I think he's probably going to get bet because he does have good early speed, but he's not a complete chuck either. So he's an interesting horse. And the other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned here is I was huge on Imprimis here. Imprimis apparently did not have his breathing problem fixed. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. They had a surgery that didn't take. And now it's tough to bet these horses back because I'm not sure if Imprimis will be retired or if they're going to try the surgery again. But even if they do try the surgery again and he comes back, it just scares you, because it's like, am I really willing to bet him knowing that there is this issue that's lingering now and that they haven't been able to get rid of? So maybe having to get off the Imprimis train here just because of the health issues that he's having.
Well, and they corrected themselves after the trainer Joe Orsino did, because initially after the race, he and Irad both said he wasn't the same horse anymore, and they thought it was Lasix. That's the second time this year that Joe Orsino has blamed not having Lasix on Imprimis for him losing. Now this time he rectified and said, okay, we realized that the tieback didn't work. He is a gelding, so I'm sure they'll do it, and as long as he comes out of it okay, they'll keep trying. But maybe if he goes to a Lasix track, maybe you can use it, but those are becoming few and far between too, so not going to be at the top level. Aaron asked what happened to Got Stormy. If you look at the running line here, you had a 6 horse photo for second that she was part of. The first, second, and third place finishers, Mike, were first, second, third halfway through the race. So there wasn't a change in order of that. So that tells me that when she's coming from the back in a sprint like this, she just wasn't able to close on them that much. And that's kind of what Tyler Gaffalione said. Did you see that differently?
No, I thought that was pretty accurate. If you weren't close to the pace, you weren't be able to get the job done, and that's what we saw here with those top 1, 2, 3 finishers. I didn't think that just because it was so close and this was a turf sprint. I don't think you really knock Got Stormy that hard for this one. She's run well on the course before. I thought she ran okay here. I think that expecting her to run like she did at Saratoga was just way beyond the reasonable expectations in this spot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if she goes to the turf sprint in the Breeders' Cup.
She's going to the mile.
She's going. Okay, I was going to say the turf sprint 5 furlongs at Del Mar probably too short for her. So the mile is a good fit for her. I mean, she could be very dangerous there because if she gets a nice trip, stalking right behind the pace, and you're on that Del Mar turf where you don't want to be coming from the clouds, it could set up nicely for Got Stormy. But I mean, this is one of those where I can't. I struggle with Got Stormy now because you were right to be on her at 11-1. You're never getting that price again. And that's the problem here is that 11-1, she's valuable in these races. At 3.5-1. I'd rather be playing someone else. And if she's going to be 3.5-1 in the mile, I probably would rather be playing someone else. And so I'm not sure you're ever going to get that price, the wedding price, the 11-1 price again. And that's, you need her to suck for a year so you can bet her again at Saratoga next summer if you want to get that price back.
So to your credit, and I believe Aaron's as well, you guys said that the thing that you Got Stormy, you as Got Stormy people talking to me, Got Stormy to do after winning the 4-star Dave was to finish off the board and not look super in this race if you wanted anything better than favoritism in the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile. So I'm with you. I think that price-wise, she's probably not going to be that attractive. She has won at Del Mar before. It was the Matriarch, I think she did. I think as a 3-year-old. She was second in the Breeders' Cup Mile to Uni and then went to Del Mar, and I believe it was the Matriarch. But she's won at Del Mar. She's very talented there. We'll see what happens. The one thing I was going to bring up here, Saturday at Kentucky Downs, 11 races, Mike, 0 gate-to-wire winners, 0 times the pace ever held, which is kind of what screwed me up a little later in this card. If I'd known pace was just not going to hold on anywhere when Bombard in this case was about the best chance they had. Not a good spot here. The first 2 races, or the first race on Sunday then, we talk about how courses change, gate-to-wire winner. So every time that you see something happen one day at a track, don't expect that to happen again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. Saturday was the first day where the rail was in. So, generally, you're going to see the speed closer toward the rail. It's the first time going over those inside courses. So that may have something to do with it. I also think, look, there's a lot of horses that are cheaper speed that are at Kentucky Downs in a lot of these races, right? In the non-stakes races, you have some horses just go. And so that also affects who's able to go gate to wire because you do have some 20, 30, 40 to 1 shots that are out there leading. And they're not the most likely horse to take a field wire to wire.
Nice race for us. We nailed this one. Well, he was 15-1, so we got 8-1 on him. Imperador in the second race of the pick 4 wins the $1 million Calumet Turf Cup. The shitty thing, because he's not a Kentucky bred, he actually wasn't racing for $1 million. He only ends up getting 317 for the win. So sorry about that, but a very nice win over the course. Do you think this horse has any chance to be a potential price play underneath at the Breeders' Cup turf?
Yeah, you could talk me into it. I mean, look, this is the back-to-back career best buyers. This is a horse that, wasn't running over in the Europe, but was running in Argentina, where the track is a little more interesting. So I think this definitely moved them forward. But lost to Trujillo last time out at the United Nations. I mean, it depends on the price here. But like we talked about Paulo Lobo in the Thursday show, he's a trainer that can get something home at a number. So I wouldn't be like completely against here. I mean, Arklow also did not get a great trip, so yeah. I'm not sure that Imprimador wins this race if Arklow gets a better trip. So we got to at least mention that. But I wouldn't be utterly shocked if this horse gets third in the Breeders' Cup, right? I mean, I think this is, if you're getting like 25, 30-1, this is someone I might use underneath in a triple.
That's what I was going to say. Like, underneath, try, super, this is a horse that I want to use. You remember Ivar last year wins the Shadwell Turf Mile at Keeneland, went to the Breeders' Cup Mile, and I got made fun of because I think I was the only person on the whole team that liked him out of that race going to the Breeders' Cup. He finished fourth. He was the top finishing American-based horse because it was the top 3 Aidan O'Brien horses. And then there's Ivar. So Lobo was able to take that big upset win with Ivar, bring him to the Breeders' Cup and handle it. This horse is owned and trained by the same people. I think he's following a similar progression here, moving up to the Breeders' Cup. Do I think he's got a chance to beat any European who shows up, even if it's the Aidan that finished well behind domestic spending? No, I don't think he does. But I think that this horse, at a price, like you're saying, Mike, is a good one to use out of here. This is the race that knocked me out, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. This one pissed me off. The Learjet winning the Grade 2 Franklin Simpson Stakes in the third leg. His first win in a year and a half. He'd finished off the board in 5 of his 8 starts since his last victory at Royal Ascot. So this horse used to have some talent. I figured he was just kind of used goods, and they were just sending him here to see if anything could wake him up. Certainly it did. And you kind of liked this horse, didn't you, Mike?
Yeah, it ended up on the Salmabums pick 4 too. So this was one of the ones I kind of reworked the ticket to get the Learjet in there. We talked about the advantage that European horses, I believe, have when they're at this racetrack, and this is what we saw from the Learjet. And look, the Learjet didn't run poorly in the 2020 Breeders' Cup. I mean, he ends up getting a 75 buyer there, was able to make up some ground on Fire at Will. And when you're comparing the time form numbers between what Miss Daniel at the 5 horse was my top pick and what the Learjet has done in the new year, the Learjet's actually run better. We also talk about, look, the grass racing is just better over in Europe. So when you have horses like this come over here on a course that it should give them an advantage to be at, I felt like you had to kind of include this one in the pick 4. 8-1, 9-1, pretty good price. The first race and the last race, the two that got me. But this is another example of, like, look, when Europeans come over, they're live, especially in these bigger purse races. You're seeing a lot more people try and get, or a lot more trainers try and get horses in these from Europe because of the purse sizes.
You and I picked Miss Amulet, the lone filly, in here as our top pick, and she was 15-1 morning line. Got 10-1s. We were both a little worried since we both had her as a top pick. She probably wouldn't be anything close to that. She finishes, a quarter of a length away from second, so I don't think that was a terrible pick. For me, I should have known. I should have listened when I was arguing about the 5. Hey, it's a European coming over. I should have used the other European. Maybe I could have survived through this leg. It's very hard to tell what these horses could potentially do next out. This race, this is the one that I never would have gotten to, specifically because I was against the race that he was exiting. But Grael wins the maiden special weight to close things out for Adam Beskiza aboard. Was never in doubt for this one. Not a race that I would have gotten to. You had the second place horse, King Curlin, and I think that's a horse that you're going to be looking at moving forward for his next start, Mike.
Yeah, I thought so. We talked about King Curlin, and the fact that this horse was here was really interesting. We got a little more feedback from some listeners mentioning that the trainer and the jockey are actually dating each other, which kind of gives me even more love for the horse. That made me feel stronger about the reason why this horse showed up here at Kentucky Downs. And sometimes it's just looking for odd angles like that, because I never would have gotten to King Curlin if it weren't for the trainer and jockey both having 0 starts here and bringing this horse in from Arlington. This is actually, so we're going to do a stable up segment later. I'm just going to do mine now. I'm going to stable up King Curlin. And the reason is because, look, first off, you might get a really short price at Arlington next time. So at least keep that in mind, that the horse the horse should go up at like even money next time out at Arlington. If it does run in a maiden special weight at Arlington next time, I think King Curlin might actually have a stakes career and down the line. Like I think this horse was good enough there. Didn't get the best trip here. Had to go 5 or 6 wide. And what we saw last year is that a lot of these horses coming out of Kentucky Downs won their next start. We're able to kind of build off of the Kentucky Downs efforts with these big fields and big purses. You're usually getting pretty good horses. So I'm interested in King Curlin moving forward. I stabled him up, and I'm most likely going to play him back, or I'm going to just single him if I get a chance to in a pick 4 or pick 5 sequence.
I can't tell if Aaron's a fan of Chris Imai or very much not a fan of Chris Imai.
Yeah,
let him clarify. Question from Chris Mael said, Mike, are you saying they might be racing Arlington next summer? I don't want to get my hopes up. There's a tiny chance. One of the finalists to buy Arlington is someone who's trying to get racing back, even though Twin Spires has said that they refuse to sell to anyone who wants to bring it back for racing. So I don't know. Maybe there's a chance. If there's a chance, I think we have to do a Magic Mike show from Arlington next year. I'm
not giving up hope until it's sold to someone who's ripping it down. I just got to have the faith, right, and hope it all works out. Although I would say it's probably 1 to 9 that there will not be racing there next summer. But I can always dream, right?
Yeah, a lot of times that's what we're left doing here is just dreaming. Mike, that's pretty much it for the horse racing talk. Wasn't a whole lot going on. So if you're just here for the horse racing talk, we'll see you back here on Thursday. We'll be covering Churchill Downs' late pick 4 because we got a couple of Breeders' Cup winning you're in prep races there. I'm assuming. We can talk about Belmont, but I assumed you just want to do Churchill.
Yeah, Churchill works for me.
That's fine. We'll give them a shot. As much as I hate Twin Spires, now we're saying we're going to go there. However, if you do want to stick around, let's talk a little bit about the football action here. Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you while I cue things up. Tell us, first off, what are the Samos 6-pack that debuted last weekend, and what can we look forward to on Monday Night Football tonight?
Yeah, so I'm going to drop an article with football picks every week. So we did the Samos 6-pack, essentially the 6 games or 6 bets that I really like that are on the board. Some of them are a little unique, so I'm looking for player totals. I'm looking for team totals for specific teams, although that flopped pretty bad. Looking at both the Saturday and the Saturday and Sunday cards. Probably going to not play Thursday or Monday. I'll just mention those on the podcast here as we go through it. And I'm going to try and put together some winning bets. We're going to do a $100 base wager, so $100 a unit. And it actually went pretty well last weekend. We ended up going, that Coastal game was awesome. I'm glad people have commented about that one. We ended up going down to the wire on the Coastal game there. We were able to just squeak it out with a nice stop late. We ended up going 4-2 over the weekend on these 6 picks. And the 1+ money pick was also got home. So we played a money line parlay there that got home. Iowa State was pretty depressing. Turning the ball over 4 times, not great. Iowa averaged 2.88 yards a play. So Iowa State, if they could have actually done anything on offense, might have been pretty good there. And then App State absolutely cruised. I mean, they almost won the game outright against Miami, so that was a nice result for us.
Which, by the way, sorry, you called Miami when they were playing Alabama. You were saying that not only was Bama first half a lock against Miami, you didn't think Miami was going to be that great, so you kind of backed it up here with your App State play.
Well, this is one of those situational spots where Miami no longer cared about this football game, right? It's their home opener, so you can make some argument they cared there. But, I mean, when you really look at it, if they lose that game, they can't win the national title now. They lost to Alabama. If they lose that game, it means absolutely nothing from an ACC perspective. So they still can win the ACC if they lose this one. I might even fade them next week again against Michigan State because it's just the game doesn't matter to them. It just makes absolutely no difference. Now I got to decide whether or not I think Michigan State's good or not, and then we'll get there. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's just like Miami is not as good as people think they are. I think that probably will change after this week because of that App State effort. But and App State's good. They're a consistent team, well coached, good running game. Miami can't stop the run, so kind of all came together. Then there's the Atlanta game, man. That was brutal. Like, number one takeaway from the weekend for me in the NFL, Arthur Smith, who was the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans during this run, right? He really good, and he had unique play calls. He threw the ball more than he ran. He was using motion, using play action. Apparently, he forgot how to do anything when he went to Atlanta because it was one of the worst called games I'd seen in a long time. They were down 22-6 and punting from the 50-yard line in the fourth quarter. I mean, just a bunch of decisions where you're just like, what are you doing, man? So he kind of fell apart there, and thus Atlanta did not get the job done. I think Atlanta is that bad. I don't think the Eagles are that good moving forward. And we were able to cash in on a teaser and a parlay. So Seattle and Denver got home for us. Denver, I think, is sneaky good, but that Jerry Jeudy injury is not great. So I'm kind of bummed that Jerry Jeudy's out here. He was one of those sleeper wide receivers that I really liked. And then here's your teaser that we got home. And thank God we did, because San Francisco doesn't cover the 9. And the Rams and the Bears are an absolute laugher. So we were able to get the job done on the teaser, get that to pay out. And then the Browns, man. The Browns. The problem is, and I know Aaron's in the background, so he's not going to love this. Look, I think we kind of know who Baker Mayfield is now. He's just not good enough to win. He's not good enough to win a title. He just isn't. You need everything else to go well to be able to get it done. The one interception he throws late in that game, that ball should have been thrown away 100 times out of 100. And he just throws it right to the defender. He kind of freaks out whenever he's under pressure. He needs that team to win him a title. He can't do it himself. He's not that guy who's going to be able to come back when they're down 4. Yeah, it's serious. He's not good enough to win them a title. He could win a title if everything goes well for them and the defense plays like it could and the offense runs the ball. But Baker Mayfield will not be the reason they win a Super Bowl. Sorry,
this is fun. This is fun because it's a one-sided conversation, and he is turning red on his camera, and he's not on here. So, that's too bad.
I mean, hey, if he wants to jump in and talk about Baker, he can jump in and talk about Baker. But I don't see him as a guy who I want coming. Yeah, of course he jumps in.
Oh, there he is.
I don't see him as a guy that I want with 2 minutes on the clock and you have to score.
I don't know. I don't know what you want him to do. This was probably his best game ever.
I want him to, when it matters, I want him to throw the football away instead of throwing it right.
He got hit as he was throwing the ball. He was throwing it away, and he got hit.
He kept the ball too long and threw it right to the guy. Throw it way out of bounds. There's no reason for it to be anywhere near not being out of bounds. Jared's now. I don't know.
I don't really know. I will never. I just don't know what more he can't. Honestly, if he won all 16, well now 17 games, and then they won the Super Bowl, people still wouldn't like him. I don't know what more you can do.
I don't dislike him. I just don't think that he can. He's not an Aaron Rodgers. He's not a Pat Mahomes. It's not total slander. He's probably the 7th or 8th best quarterback in the NFL. But if you're coming down to that drive, I have zero interest in him being the guy that's leading me.
It's just crazy. I just don't know what he could do. He almost throws for more yards than Mahomes. He had a better completion percentage than Mahomes. His team, a punter fumbles a damn ball. The Chubb
it doesn't kick it. Yeah,
they would have won the game. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know what more Baker Mayfield can do. 21 of 28 for 321 yards on the road, hostile environment against the Chiefs defense that's average, maybe a little above.
Okay, I mean, we'll see. I don't disagree. He's not a bad quarterback. He's just not that guy that I want there in the last drive.
He's not Mahomes.
No.
Okay, who is?
Well, I would rather have Rodgers. I'd rather have Stafford. I'd rather have a laundry list. Oh, I'd take Stafford over him in a second. Yep.
Well, the difference, I guess, between Baker and Stafford is Stafford went to a horrible franchise and couldn't do anything with it.
Correct. Well, yeah. Well, okay, come on. The Detroit team has never had as much talent as the Cleveland team does right now. They have 3 good wide receivers, a good tight end, 2 very good running backs, the best offensive line in football, an elite edge rusher, an elite number 1 cornerback. They've signed 3 secondary guys to fix their only hole in the secondary. They are probably the most complete team outside of quarterback in the NFL right now.
It's just unreal. It's unreal that he gets drafted and everybody hates him and it's awful. It's the worst pick. And then he goes 7-8 on a team that had won 1 game in 2 years. And then the next year they did suck. And then the next year they make the playoffs for the first time in forever. All this stuff. This year they go into Cleveland and cover a bet for you, by the way. I should point that out. Let's see. Nick Chubb had 83 yards rushing. Kareem Hunt had 33. Baker had 321 through the air to the rushing game that had 153. So he doubled up what is supposed to be the strength of the team. And, he basically, the one mistake he makes, he was hit on the play. Now, I was pissed that he threw it, but this guy played a great game. I mean, to come on and say, well, if they didn't have Baker.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying. I said he's a top 10 quarterback, and you think it's
Aaron
slander.
Rodgers gets beat 38-3, and he's better than Baker. I mean, come on. I mean, it's crazy to think that people.
So wait, you would take Baker? You would take Baker over Aaron Rodgers?
What's that?
You take Baker over Aaron Rodgers?
With Rodgers' current attitude, yes. Now, talent-wise, no, absolutely not. But that's the point that I'm trying to make is this is not a weakness. Baker Mayfield is not a weakness on this team. He's not holding them back. They're not, they would be elite if they didn't have Baker Mayfield. If they had Pat Mahomes, well, sure, it'd be an upgrade. But
so here's the problem. Here's the problem. He's going to be the fourth best quarterback in the Final Four of the NFL.
Okay, who's the Final Four?
Tampa Bay, Kansas City, Cleveland, and probably, I would say probably the Rams. And they could get hurt on the defensive side because they're pretty thin. But the problem is when you get to the Final Four, just like last year, Baker Mayfield's going to be the worst quarterback left. It was Rodgers, Brady, Mayfield, Mahomes.
So 3 Hall of Fame players.
Right, but that doesn't change in the NFL. Like if you look at the full quarterbacks who are in the Final Four every year, you're getting the top 4 of the top 6 usually NFL quarterbacks.
Right, but that not every year, but yeah, most years you're right about that. But to say that, I mean, I don't know. I guess the biggest thing is you take away this game. It was a great game and all this stuff. It was, very competitive game. 2 best teams in the AFC, I think for sure.
I agree.
It's like, well, Baker screwed it up again.
There's a lot of other things that went wrong for the Browns. The punter should have punted the ball. They shouldn't give up a 75-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill when you're up 2 scores. Like there's other things that went wrong that were not Baker's fault. But in that last drive, you got to get that ball out of bounds. You just have to. And it seems like we've had enough of those moments now in the NFL where Baker's not able to do the thing that you just have to do. And that's where the criticism comes. That's why, I think Baker's a top 10 quarterback. I'm giving him accolades, but also saying I don't want him against Mahomes. I don't want him against Brady. I don't want him against Rodgers. I think that's a pretty logical argument. And that's who he's going to face late in the playoffs. He's going to have to beat 2 of those guys.
I think the Mahomes problem is always going to be a problem for the Browns. And that is what it is. He's also a problem for every other team in the AFC. That's just what the Chiefs would be a 10-7 type team without him.
Oh, I think that's
going to be a problem. There's no way around it.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. And that's going to be the problem for a lot of the AFC. And, some people love Josh Allen. I'm not so sold on Josh Allen still. I think that we've got to see a little bit more from him, especially Dable should have been hired as a head coach last year. He's the reason that you saw that massive turnaround, the offensive coordinator.
You want to talk about a guy that didn't match up at all against Mahomes? That was Josh Allen last year. That was embarrassing. They got ran off the field.
Oh, that's not nice. Winston Fitzpatrick, Carr Baker.
I don't think there's ever been a quarterback more hated that's actually really good than Baker Mayfield. Listen, Jared says he's Alex Smith, and maybe he is. Well,
that's not true either. I know he's better than Alex Smith. Come on.
Did everybody hate Alex Smith like this? Did everybody blame Alex Smith all the time for everything? No.
I mean, the one guy I can think of, Kirk Cousins. Everyone hates Kirk Cousins for some reason
because he legitimately is awful.
That guy's wacky. As a Michigan State fan, let me tell you, that guy's wacky.
I just don't get it. I mean, I watched that game and thought, wow, he kept him in the game. And then you watch it and he cost him the game.
I didn't say he cost them the game. I said I don't want him when that drive happens. Look, he also gets a lot of plus EV passing situations, right? It's a lot of play action. It's behind a really good offensive line. There was no pressure on him all day. All those things help him be able to go 21 for 28 for 321 yards too.
Okay, but I want to point something out. Other than Patrick Mahomes, in the NFL, if you're going to be an elite quarterback, you have to have a good scheme. I don't care who it is.
Oh yeah, no, that's accurate. I agree with that.
One of the reasons why he has started to develop over the last year and a half. I was telling Jared, because he hates him and he thinks he's awful. I said, you don't get it. The last 8 games of last year, he looked like he looked yesterday. It's because they finally have a coach that knows what he's doing offensively. They've got a great scheme. They do have great players around him. Most NFL quarterbacks have to have that to be successful.
Yeah, Stefanski's done a wonderful job there, and you've seen Minnesota almost fall off a little bit when you've seen Cleveland kind of come on the up because of the way that Stefanski runs it. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't
looked pretty darn good when he was there.
But he had a pretty good year last year, too. Like, Minnesota's offense was pretty good last year as well, but they have a ton of weapons all over the place. They're still using a lot of Stefanski's scheme, too. So, but Stefanski is the difference in the Browns. You saw just amateur hour coaches there.
Right.
Like, we all watched Hard Knocks, right? I mean, that was just a joke. And then you come in and you get Stefanski, who's professional, understands modern-day offense, throwing more than running, but also controlling the ground when you need to, using the run to set up the pass, play action, motion, all that jazz that make it more effective.
Put this one compliment in 4 years does not make up for 3 years of every time he throws an interception, which we went 8 weeks last year without you having to text me and say that. So that doesn't count. You still hate him.
Well, for all this and more great football talk, check out Dudes Who Bet Sports. Aaron Halterman, Papa Dude. You guys are at now 7 episodes. I caught the tail end of today's show. Aaron, since you're here, and we're promoting the Racing Dudes Sports side here at the end of the show, tell us a little bit about the podcast, and then talk about who Papa Dude likes in Baltimore and Vegas.
Well, by the way, I was not planning to come on here. Samich just made me so angry that I had to come on. So
with logical statements, just pissed you off.
with outlandish, crazy statements.
Okay.
Baker Mayfield is a
Boomer
problem.
Homer over here.
What was the question, Magic? I'm sorry. I haven't been listening to Magic the whole show. What happened?
Mike, who do you like at Baltimore or Las Vegas tonight?
I hate the game. I played the over, so I have the over 50. Marcus Peters is a huge loss for Baltimore on the outside. People are talking about the running backs, but I think the secondary, specifically Marcus Peters, really hurts them even more. It makes it harder to blitz now that they don't have their lockdown number one corner, and they love to blitz. So I think you're going to see a lot of wide receivers running open for Vegas, and I think that Lamar is going to Lamar this Las Vegas defense. I'd lean Vegas plus the 3.5 if I was going to take someone. I think people are underselling the home field advantage here for Vegas. This is the first time fans are going to be in the stands there, and it's Las Vegas. They'll be liquored up for a Monday night game. It's going to be loud. So I think it's going to be tough for Baltimore in that sense. So I lean toward Vegas in the points. I like the over. And then Braylon Edwards, over 37.5 yards receiving is probably the prop I like the most. He is going to be, I think you're going to see a ton of attention toward Waller. And I think that's going to leave both Ruggs and Braylon Edwards open on the outside with the depleted cornerbacks.
And in this article at racingnews.com/sports, the free preview of tonight's game that Papa Dude put together. Griffin, go check it out. There's your answer right there. I think he likes the over prop bets with you. Plenty of firepower on this side of the ball, as Papa Dude said. Aaron, I was just going to say, tell us about Dudes Who Bet Sports as we wrap up at the end.
Wait a second. Mind blown? Jared's watching the show.
Whoa!
He never watched, none of us even.
Well, he heard Mahomes. It's like a little radar. He went, wait, somebody's talking about Mahomes on our YouTube channel, and I need to go listen right now.
That's the first time in 4 years he's watched the show. So should we
Hi, Jared.
All right, go ahead, Aaron.
As you guys are, I think he just loves to hate on Baker Mayfield. If I tell you what, Jared, if Baker Mayfield sucks, your defense, it's going to be a bad year. They didn't look very good against anything the Browns tried. All right. Dudes Who Bet Sports is out. Papa Dude agrees with Samich, by the way. He took the Raiders +4, and I went Baltimore. And here's why. It seems like a lot of the normal week one trends have not come through in the NFL this year. So the point of home advantage for the Raiders, it should be strong. Usually the West Coast game on Monday night, the home team wins. I went against all the trends and took Baltimore because it just seems like a wacky week. It's big. It should be an entertaining game. Sorry, Magic.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun one too. Yeah, dogs go 11-4 this week. The underdogs were barking all week, and the Vegas books had a very, very good week because of it. Have you looked at the lines for next week? Can you play anything early before you get the line movements?
Okay. So I got one in, all right, and I have to thank my friend from Denver. He texted me as Denver was pulling away from the Giants. He says, go right now and hop on Denver. They're -2.5 against Jacksonville. I said, okay, and I went in and I did it because, let's face it, Jacksonville was just atrocious week one. That line, let me look it up real quick here. That line, what is it?
6.
6.
Yeah.
So 3.5 points. Thank you to my buddy in Denver for quickly letting me know about that, or I would have not thought about it. Yeah, but that's one I jumped on early.
Yeah, I got a piece of that one at 3. I didn't get it at 2.5. I wish I'd gotten it at 2.5. It's a lot of road favorites next week again. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think you might want to play KC right now -3. They are going into Baltimore next weekend. And if Baltimore loses to the Raiders today, you are not getting 3 tomorrow. So I think playing KC +3 right now, probably a good, or -3 right now, probably a good move if you want to end up playing that Sunday night game.
Well, yeah, I totally agree with that. And I don't think that line, like I said, it can only move if you want the Chiefs, it can only move worse for the Chiefs. I don't think it's going to move any better than that 3 anyway. So I like it.
Well, you can check out the Dudes Who Bet podcast, even if you don't miss it, or if you don't catch the YouTube live stream, I should say. There is the podcast. However you download the Magic Mike Show, the Blinkers Off podcast, just search for Dudes Who Bet Sports. 7 episodes in, getting better with each show. Aaron, thanks for jumping on. This was a pretty boring podcast, just talking about Kentucky Downs until you showed up, and you and Mike got to debate football. This was a lot of fun for me to sit back and listen to.
Because Kentucky Downs, once it's over, I don't want to think about it again for a year. So.
Aaron was leading the charge in the parade away from Kentucky Downs Sunday night. No lie there. Mike and I will be back on Thursday. We're going to be covering the late pick 4 sequence at Churchill Downs, which has the Pocahontas and the Iroquois, which are both Breeders' Cup winning urine for the juvenile and the juvenile fillies. They're also the first points races to the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks, so we can start talking about that shit already. But we'll be back on Thursday, 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific. Until then, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And he's Aaron Halchman and won't say shit. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Thanks for joining us.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.